All right. Good morning. So, get your notebooks out. Hopefully, you guys had a chance to go ahead and look at the PDF of everything that we are discussing today. So, we are finishing up the transformations, and I know that we're going kind of slow so far. Some of this is confusing. Like I said yesterday, I don't love the beginning problems. I don't love this first couple sections. After today, I promise it gets a lot better. They just kind of ripped the band-aid right off and we're jumping into it. So our objective is, again, making sure that you guys can write the equation of the function given the transformation and or the graph. So basically the same thing as yesterday, but this time we're really going to be focusing on a couple other things. Now, like I said, today's lesson is going to be a little bit quicker because we are wrapping up this section. Tomorrow we're going to move on to something else. So you should know everything about this real quick. So what this says, let me move this here. What this says is, given the graph here at the left, this is your function. So this is the function that we're going to be transforming or moving. Write the correct equation of the transformation. So we've got two problems down here, and this is just like the first four on your book. So if this is my parent function, how can I go from this drawing to this drawing? Now, the very first thing that I want to do here, I could do this. If this is my f function, I could go ahead and write this down. Sorry. But the book is going to look something like this. It's going to say, well, what am I doing to the function? Is it going to be f of x, and let's just say it went plus 2 or 3 or plus 2, or is it going to be like f of x plus 2? Basically, is it happening to the input or is it happening to the output? Okay. Now, once you do this a couple of times, it's real simple. So it looks like my vertex here was -3, 0. So let me just write this down. My vertex is -3, 0. And it looks like my a value is up 1 over 1. It's positive because it opens up. Well, let's just see what happened here. Looks like now my vertex is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7, 0, and my a value is still 1. Now I'm expecting some questions here in just a second. So if I'm just going from this function to this function, it looks like it moved left 4 more spots. Does everybody see that? So it moved left 1, 2, 3, 4. The a value is the same. So if it moved left 4, does that affect the x value or does it affect the y value? Will somebody unmute and help?
The Y.
So will anybody either back that up or think something different?
The X value.
Allison, why do you say the x value?
Well, because moving left and right is on the X axis and up and down is on the Y axis.
And that's exactly right. And that's the best way to remember that. So it's going to affect the x. Remember, this whole f of x thing, that really just means y. Okay? So if my x value is moving left 4 times, somebody tell me, is it going to be this or is it going to be this? So one of these is the right answer. Which one says it's going to move left 4 times? The x minus 4 or the x plus 4?
X plus 4.
That's exactly right. So my answer for number 1 is this right here. That's saying that my x's are moving left 4. So this again is just a more general, ambiguous way of saying what the transformation actually is. Now, let's look at this again. Let's look at number 2. Number 2, I've done multiple transformations. So again, if my original drawing, that f of x, if my f of x is right here, well, what have I done to it? So again, my vertex was at negative 3, 0, and now it's at negative 1, 2, 3, 2. So my vertex is at negative 3, 2. And let's look at the A value. It's still opening up, but it looks like my A value is up 1, 2, 3 over 1. So my A value is positive 3. So how can I write the equation of the transformation from this to this? Now I'm going to give you guys not too much time, about 30 seconds to think about it. Try it on your own. Okay. Now, this is really the heart of the lesson, and we've already done all of this stuff. We're just putting it again in general terms. So the very first thing I want to do is this. So I've got 3. So if my A value is 3, I'm going to take 3 times whatever's out there. So that's how I'm going to address the A value. Again, we're getting into more general terms. And it looks like this has moved up 2. So the up 2 is going to go on the outside. And it does what it says it does. All right. Any questions? You have 4. Now, the good news is you have 4 to match on the test. And this is really just checking, do you understand what it's saying and what's going on the test? On your assignment tonight, you have 4. And it's going to be real similar to this. So when we have extra time, whether it's 10 minutes or 20 minutes, you might want to go ahead and start just in case you have questions, because I don't want anybody missing this. And again, this gets it gets a little bit confusing. I understand. But go ahead and ask questions. So let's go.
How do you know if your graph, if like the equation is going to have like an absolute value or just a regular linear value?
So it has an absolute value right here, right? But that's what this is saying. So I missed this. Oh, sorry, I erased that. So if this is saying that's my f function, so I could go ahead. One thing I could do is I could go ahead and write the equation of that. So my vertex was at negative 3, 0, right? So it should be x plus 3. If I were rewriting this, now it's going to be, for number 1, my equation would look like this. So my A value is still the same. I've moved it over 4, and I haven't moved it up or down any. So this is the equation, and that's really what we were doing yesterday. Now we're just taking a more ambiguous look at what's going on. So because I moved this left 4, what did I really do to what's going on in here? Well, to the x value, I just added 4. Okay, and
So
that's
when
where
we're
that
answering
came from.
questions like this, which format will we be looking for?
So you have 4, and this is all matching, and this is why I'm starting with this, because once you see it, I want to kind of get it down. It's not that difficult. The heart of the lesson we actually did yesterday, we're just kind of wrapping it up and taking things a little more general. As long as you know how to go from like this one to this one, in my book, that's 99% win.
Okay.
Now, taking it to the next level would be looking at it a little more generically and saying, well, if this is my f function, what did I do to go from here to here? Well, I know that my x has moved left 4. So that's how I account for that. Okay. Now, let's go ahead and assume, I actually don't love this problem. Let's assume the slope was still the same. So let's assume, I say slope, my A value is still the same. If the only thing that changed, don't worry about any of that. If the only thing that changed is it went up 2, then it would just be 2 added to the outside. And that's just how it's showing that it goes up or down, okay? So let's go ahead and go on. And hopefully you guys can start your assignment while I'm still on here, because that's literally the first 4 on your assignment tonight. Now, I'm going to show you guys this. We only have 3 pages. Like I said, this shouldn't be more than a 15 to 20-minute lesson because I want to make sure that we stay on and I can answer some questions. So here's the other part. So writing a function g. So basically, if this is my f function, I want to write a new function with this translation, whose graph represents the indicated transformations of the graph of f. I want you guys to be very, very, very careful. So we started this yesterday. We're wrapping it up today. So notice there's no absolute values here. So if I were just graphing this right now, my graph is just a straight line that looks something like this, okay? But be careful, the order matters. Whatever your parent function is, it's gonna stay there, and that's what we're affecting. So I'm translating this 4 units up. You have to do it in order. So I'm gonna start one thing at a time. So f of x equals, if I'm translating it 4 units up, that's my first one. So 4 units up. Now, whenever it says followed by, that applies to everything that we have done. So if I move this 4 up, 1, 2, 3, 4, now you're going to see something up here, but it's been shrunk. Well, remember, I told you if it were, well, the whole thing, let me just show you this. Sorry, it gets a little, if we were in person, this would be a little bit better. But, so it's followed by a vertical shrink of a factor of a half. Where we talked about this yesterday, if I have a vertical shrink that has a factor of a half, that 1/2 gets multiplied to everything. So it gets multiplied by that entire quantity, not just the 1/2 in front. So your final answer is this. That's your entire answer. So the order matters. If it says that we have a translation first and then it's followed by a vertical stretch or a vertical shrink, then all of those values are going to be multiplied. Now, before I do number 2, I'm going to give you another one. Let's just say it was an absolute value. Let's say that this is my question. It doesn't really change. So 4 units up, my first one would just be this. And then if it's followed by a vertical shrink, the vertical shrink would take half of everything, but it's going to go out front here. And then half of 4 is plus 2. So the absolute value or the linear equation, it really works the same way. In fact, we're not really going to talk much about the linear equation with this. I just want you to be aware of it. So the only reason I put number 2 on here is because I want to make sure that you guys understand what's going on. This says a reflection in the y-axis. Can somebody tell me from yesterday? So if it's a reflection in the y-axis, would it be a negative sign outside the absolute value or inside the absolute value?
Inside.
That's exactly right. So do it in order, left to right. So here, I've got f of x equals opposite of x, followed by a translation 2 units to the right. Well, 2 units to the right, left and right affects this. Again, we've already put this in here, so 2 to the right is just going to be, should that be plus 2 or minus 2?
Minus.
Good. And that's your entire answer. Okay. Now, if it would have said a translation 2 to the right and then a reflection, so if I would have switched these up, so if I said 2 to the right and then a reflection, well, 2 to the right would be like this, and then I'm doing a reflection, then I'm taking the opposite of the entire thing, and that would look like this. All right, so be careful. The order matters. Okay. The last thing that we are doing is talking about this. So we just talked about how the order matters. Reminder, a vertical stretch or shrink, it multiplies each output value by its factor. All right, so if you guys ever find yourself getting confused, you can always make a table. By the way, we haven't really talked about this, so let's have a quick check real quick. But if this is my function, what's this x minus 3? What's this really doing? I'm gonna have to start calling on people. What's this x minus 3? What's that really doing? Moving it how?
It's going to the right.
So right 3, and this minus 5 is doing what?
Down 5.
Down 5. And my a value, again, my a value is what? What's this a value that we don't really see that's right here?
1.
It's just positive 1. And positive just tells me that it's opening up. So right now, and I'm going to throw a rough graph on here, it is right 1, 2, 3, down 5. My slope is up 1 over 1. And remember, absolute values make b's, right? Well, I want to show you this real quick, what a vertical stretch and shrink really does. So I'm going to go ahead and make a table. You do not have to do this. I'm just kind of proving a point. So I'm going to pick like -1, 0, 3, and 5. Okay. So for this graph that I just kind of threw a sloppy one up here, I'm going to plug these in. Let's just act like we don't know how to graph. So when x is -1, -1 minus 3 is -4, absolute value is 4, minus 5 is -1. When it's 0, -3, absolute value is 3, minus 5 is -2. 3 is 0, that's -5. 5 is 5 minus 3, which is 2, minus 5, which is -3. I want you guys to see what happens. So if I had all of these, but now I want a vertical stretch by a factor of 2, that's multiplying each output by its factor. So once I do this, so I'm multiplying the vertical stretch by a factor of 2, I'm multiplying each output by its factor. So all that's going to mean is that after my factor here, and I'm just going to call this y prime or y1 here, I multiply all these by 2. So this is what my new graph should look like. Okay? So whenever it tells me that I have an equation, so the absolute value of the quantity of x minus 3 minus 5, and the entire quantity is being stretched, that means I have to multiply both the absolute value, which we don't multiply inside it, it's an operation, and the k value by that factor. Okay? That's it. And people will say, I don't get it still. Well, I want you to understand that from the original parent function, it has been transformed and stretched. So all of those outputs are being multiplied by the factor of 2. Does that make sense? Now, this is really just kind of a wrap-up lesson. I know that for a lot of you guys, you understood it perfectly yesterday. You understood what we were doing. And if you did that, that's like a 95% win. But this is getting into things a little more particular and talking about general cases. So your assignment tonight, you don't have very many. You've got, I believe it's 13 questions, and the first 4 are given the graph, right, A, B, C, or D. So you match them up, okay? Now, I do want you guys to take at least the next 5 or 10 minutes, make sure that you are all on big ideas, and if we could at least get through those first 4, and I'm not gonna do them with you, but I am gonna be here. I'm gonna stay on right here and help. So if you even wanna stop your video for a second, unmute it if you have any questions. So go through and see if you understand it. Again, I know I don't love these first 2 sections. It gets a lot better tomorrow as far as the questioning, the assignment, so on and so forth. So I don't want you guys to lose very many points, if any points, in these first couple days. So I'm going to go ahead and stop recording, and then I'll give you guys some time to work. Remember, this Zoom goes for another 20 minutes. So that leaves me 20 minutes to help. So hopefully you guys don't even need extra help tonight. Okay.